Hey there, and welcome to That's Audacious, where we share entrepreneurial stories from amazing leaders to inspire and motivate you to be bold, brave, and audacious. I'm your host, Lauren Clemett, the brand navigator, here to share stories that will make you say, well, that's audacious. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the That's Audacious podcast. And I have the fabulous Rose Davidson with us today. Rose is the host and producer of the Talking with Experts podcast. And it's very unusual for Rose because now she's in the hot seat being interviewed. Normally it's the other way around. So Talking with Experts is a top 5 globally ranked and award-winning podcast featuring insightful conversations with industry leaders and entrepreneurs. But in addition to hosting this amazing podcast, Rose also is skilled in helping other people learn how to navigate the waters of becoming a podcast host and hosting their own shows. She has something called the Signature Opal system, which we'll go into a little bit more today as well. But Rose, it's fabulous to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit more about how you got started in podcasting.
Well, it's a little bit of a story. Back in 2020, when we're all in lockdown and, we're all fabulous and all doing stuff, I noticed a lot of businesses were closing and I felt for them and I thought, these are bricks and mortar businesses. And I thought, wow, there's got to be something that you can do. I had heard of podcasting. I hadn't listened to one, but, people were talking about podcasting because, we were locked down, we had nothing better to do. So I thought, well, why not start a podcast? And just one of my Whim things that I do, and Rose, just do this and then work out the details later. So I thought, well, I just want to help business owners get their businesses stable, remain open. Whether you're bricks and mortar businesses, you could go online, you could offer services, doesn't really matter. There is something that you can do. So I had a few Facebook friends. I invited them onto the podcast. Prosper Teravinga was my very first guest, and I bless his heart. And I just went from there. I'm now 633 recorded episodes. I've been going for 5 years now. I'm loving it. And I've met some incredible people along the way. It's just, fabulous. So I just wanted to help people. Basically, it's what I started it for. I wasn't in it for the money. I was just wanting in to help people.
I love it. It's one of the nicest things, isn't it? When you have an idea, I call them a brain fart. You have a little brain fart and then you leap and grow wings on the way down and figure out how it all works and how to do it. But you've done such a great job. 630 episodes, Rose. You were saying in the chat before we got recording today that, if you get past 5 episodes in your own podcast, if you've recorded 5, you're doing a good thing. What is it that people... I mean, that's a lot of episodes you've recorded over 5 years. Most people get all excited about starting a podcast, but then, like I say, after 5 or 6 episodes, they go, well, this is hard work. What's made you stick at it, do you think, Rose?
I think it's because I'm a bit heart-centered. I've met some wonderful people. I love it. I love the people that want to openly share their knowledge. I know it's a leveraging thing when, you get on someone's podcast and you market it, and it's a good marketing tool. However, the people that I've had on are just so incredibly insightful, and they offer the best advice. And sometimes I go back and re-listen to the episodes just to get some clarity on something that I might be having a bit of a challenge with. So, if you get past 5 episodes, you're doing well, because the majority don't. As you say, they find that it's quite difficult. It is very time consuming, or can be if you don't outsource. But, I've kept going because I love doing it. I think I've got nothing better to do. I'm not working, so why not, do 6 episodes a week and edit them and spend all that time making other people happy.
And the nice thing is you're creating a legacy, aren't you? As you say, this podcast, these recorded episodes will be around long after we've left the planet so that other people can learn. Why did you decide that it was about talking with experts and it was an interview series? Because there's lots of different ways of having a podcast, isn't it? It's either sharing tips or information or interviews or lots of different formats. What was your decision around having an interview style podcast as the way to go?
Because I'm terrible talking to a camera on my own. I have tried it. I have tried it so many times, and I just get the ums and the ahs, and I forget what I want to say. And I just find that if I can see someone's face, that I'm really comfortable with that. And so that's why I decided to do an interview thing. Business owners helping business owners. That is my tagline. And talking with the experts. Well, people I talk to are experts in their particular field. So that's where the name came from, and that's the theory behind it.
Yeah, I love it. And I guess this is going to lean a little bit into your Opal system that we'll talk about in a second, but you must have a process for vetting people coming through. How do you manage that? Because if you've got people coming and saying, I want to be on your podcast, but they're not actually experts, how do you deal with that?
I politely send them an email and say, I'm sorry, but your thing doesn't fit in with what I'm doing, what my podcast is about. But good luck in the future. I do have a set email that I do send to people. I actually belong to a platform called Podmatch, which is much like Matchmaker, but you get actually paid as a host to host your podcast. And I find some incredible guests through them. Alex Serafino's done an absolute wonderful job setting all that up. So I love it. Podmatch is great, and they vet people before they go on. So if they set themselves up as a guest, they're vetted before they're allowed to stay on the program. So
Yeah, brilliant. I love Podmatch. You're right. Alex has done an amazing job. And Podmatch, if you're listening and you haven't heard about Podmatch, it is like a Tinder for podcasting. So you can start for free, and you can just go and put yourself on there either as a guest. I don't know if there's a cost to go on if you're a podcast. I'm not sure, Rose. Do you pay to be?
The cost for guesting is paid, as far as I'm aware, and the cost for hosting is, I don't know, $6 American a month. It's not expensive.
So it's not much to get your podcast seen and noticed. So there's it works both ways, doesn't it? You're helping promote the podcast to appear on, but also if you are an expert in your field, and we love the idea of using podcasts to grow your profile, because it's not just another backlink. You're giving people a sound of your voice, your brand. And if you're a speaker or a thought leader or an author or a business leader, and you want to grow your brand and your personal brand, to have someone hear you speak about what you're passionate about, it's a really great way to introduce yourself. So Podmatch, I'll put a link somewhere at the bottom of this recording, so you'll be able to find that as well. So let's talk briefly, Rose, about your unique approach, Opal system. Opal, organize, produce, arrange, and launch is what Opal stands for. Walk us through that a little bit more to give people an idea. If you're looking to start your own podcast, this is an idea of a system that Rose has.
Yeah, well, it was one of my whims that I thought, let's just write a program that people can do online and learn how to start a podcast, and they can learn at their own pace. Now, O is for organise, as you said, and organise is, you learn about the law. This is where you choose your program strategies. The very beginning of it, where you pick your name, you pick your channel, your host channel, you set up your studio and do all those really wonderful things. And then produce is obviously to go behind the scenes, and so you learn about being a great host. You also learn about being a great guest on other people's podcasts. You learn about building confidence on the camera, and how to find the perfect guests for your podcast. And in Arrange, this is where you do all the editing. So you learn how to structure an intro and an outro, and how to edit your podcasts, and what are the best platforms to be using. And then obviously there's Launch. And Launch is about, obviously, how you get your podcast out there, how you can monetize it, and how you can establish yourself as an authority in the podcasting world and in the business world, or whatever world it is that you happen to be podcasting in.
I love it. So if you're listening and you're thinking, I really want to be a better guest on podcasts, I want to find more podcasts, it might be worth talking to Rose about her Opal system, because it's a great way to learn how to make sure you're doing the right things and getting yourself out there. But definitely, if you are an expert and you're wanting to launch your own podcast, or maybe you got to those 5 or 10 episodes and went, oh, it's too hard. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to go and reliven that and review it and go through that Opal process with Rose. To really figure out how you can be better organized, you can arrange better speakers on your podcast, and you can just get everything organized a little bit more so that it's not quite as time consuming. Rose, what's one of the biggest number one mistakes that you think people who are looking to start their own podcast make?
Not being organized and thinking they need all the bells and whistles, the very expensive microphone, the expensive cameras, the lights and everything. You don't need any of that. I started with a laptop, just use the microphone on the laptop, the camera on the laptop. But I guess you need to make sure that the audio is the best. People will forgive you for bad visuals and a bad video, but audio, they will not, because if they're going to listen to the podcast as a podcast and not watch it as a video, then the audio's got to be really spot on. But you can start with your phone. You don't need any bells and whistles, and I think that is the greatest mistake people make. It's not expensive to start a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's getting easier too, isn't it? Because I mean, I've got a Yeti mic that's sitting on my desk that's plugged into my computer and seems to do its job. Shouldn't pick it up because it'll do all sorts of things now. But yeah, you're right, Rose. So often we think, we've got to go to a studio somewhere. And great, awesome. There are absolutely places out there where you can turn up, you can record 6 or 7 podcasts in a row and they'll do all your editing for you and so on. But quite often that whole idea of it's bigger than a big thing holds people back, doesn't it? From going, let's just into it.
No, there's no need. There's just do what I did and just start. Just have the idea, have the intention, have the clarity of what you want your message to be, and just start. And you'll find more often than not that you love what you're doing. Even if you're doing a solo podcast, as long as your message is true, you're authentic in your delivery, people will listen. And I guess another mistake too that people think, unless you're like a famous person, you'll get millions of views straight away or millions of downloads. You will not. Please, it takes a long time. So unless you've got a dedicated following already, you will not be an instant success. These numbers take time, and if you're doing it for the numbers, then you're in it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. You are listening to the That's Audacious podcast. If you like what you're listening to, there are lots of other episodes with incredible people. Just find it on your favorite podcast channel, That's Audacious. Now, Rose, let's talk a little bit about the fact that Talking to the Experts has been ranked number 5 in the world globally for podcasts. How did you do that? I mean, we talked just recently about not going into the numbers, not having the numbers as your primary goal. It should be a bigger goal than that when you start a podcast, some other purpose for it, either connecting with people, growing your brand, being of service, all those other things that you could choose. But how do you get globally ranked with a podcast? What are the steps?
Well, Lauren, to be honest, I have no idea. There is a certain criteria. I think in the first 30 days of your podcast, you've got to have so many downloads. I rank in the top 5% in the world, and there's over 3 million podcasts or something in the world. So 5% of 3 million's, pretty good. To be honest, I don't know. I just found myself, you go on to Listen Notes, which is the authority to find out where you rank in the world. And I ranked top 5%. And I thought, how did that happen? But I mean, I'll take it. I'll take the kudos. Believe me. I mean, it's, I'm working my way up to 2.5, and that's coming. So.
Brilliant. I love it. And it's funny, isn't it? I remember Gary V, when he first talked with Gary Vaynerchuk about his YouTube channel, that I think he recorded something like 383 episodes before it took off. Same with podcasting, isn't it? I mean, we talk about some of our favorite podcasts. I love listening to Diary of a CEO, and Stephen Bartlett now has like 30 people who help him produce that podcast. He has the most amazing guests on, like the founder of Netflix and Gymshark founder, all those sorts of people on his podcast. But he didn't start with that. He started with just talking about what he was interested in and having people on who was it, and it slowly grew over time. What do you think some of the mindset things are? If you're a podcast guest, what are some of the, not focusing on the numbers, not thinking you're going to go to the top number 1 podcast in 3 episodes, all that sort of stuff's fair enough. But what are the sorts of mindset things we can look at if you want to be a podcast host? that you need to really set yourself up with right from the start?
I think the consistency is one of the main things, and dedication. I think you've got to be dedicated to the craft. And I do call podcasting a craft because it is. There are things in that, and some people just aren't suited to be podcast hosts. I have actually guested on a podcast where I was the guest, and I think I said 5 words. So you've got to give. My podcast is all about my guest. I prefer not to do a lot of speaking. I will ask questions, obviously, but it's very organic. I love the fact that my guests want to share their knowledge, and that's why I do it. Is because I love it just to be very authentic and very down to earth. And the editing's not even has bells and whistles. It's very plain and simple, and there's just an intro and outro and a few things in the middle, and that's about it. And that's how I like to have it, and my guests seem to like to have that way as well.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. Right, so down to the nitty-gritty today, Rose. If someone was looking at starting a podcast, we've now convinced them. They're like, okay, I think this is a good idea. I need to be a podcast host. What's the first step?
The first step is to, I guess, decide what kind of podcast you want to have, whether you want to have a solo podcast or an interview podcast, or if it's something you want to share about, sharing music or information. So you need to decide that first before you do absolutely anything. That is and then you've got to also find out about the legalese and legalities of what you're talking about, because there are some topics which are a bit taboo. So you need to be mindful that you're not encroaching on anyone's copyright or stepping on anyone's toes at all. So make sure that you've got all the legal stuff behind you first. So that would be my very first things I would be doing.
Yeah, brilliant. And is there any ideal length of a podcast? Like, I know some people who have 10 minutes, some people have an hour. Stephen Bartlett talks for up to 2.5 hours sometimes with people. I mean, is there any ideal length?
No, it depends on what you want to do. You're the host. You set the ground rules. You do what you think is how long you want to interview somebody for, or how long you want to talk for. It's up to you. I do my podcast interviews for about 30 minutes. Sometimes they go over, sometimes they go under. It depends on the topic and how interesting the guest might be. I mean, sometimes their promo looks really great, the information they send you looks great, but sometimes they're not the greatest guest, and it's like extracting teeth trying to get information out of them. And sometimes it's really challenging, and I'm not a bad interviewer, but honestly sometimes I just feel like, why am I bothering? It can be quite a challenge.
That's a really good conversation, actually. There's probably another whole entire podcast conversation we could have just around being a good guest and what the things are. But I guess being interested as a host and being interesting as a guest is probably a good start, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes. If you're not a conversationalist, then don't go on a podcast. That is my thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I think as well is leveraging your podcast. All very well to get on a podcast and have an interview and a lovely chat with somebody, but then when they send you the link and they go, hey, your podcast's live, to go, oh, I'm going to share it once on my social media and that's it. Probably not really great use of your time. There's so many other things you can do with your podcast, aren't they, these days?
Absolutely. And I find it a little bit disappointing that, I share the links to my guests. I share assets for them to put up, and I'm finding that some of them aren't sharing, and to me it's disappointing. Why have you wasted your time to be on my show if you're not going to share to your guests, to your network, to your in your newsletters or whatever it is that you're doing? To me it's disappointing, and I don't understand why they bother, to be honest. And then there's the other ones who book in an interview and then they don't turn up at all without any explanation. Oh, that is such a mind-blowing, just really makes me angry.
Don't do that. There's some don'ts, there's some do's and don'ts in this fabulous conversation we're having today that I absolutely love. Now, Rose, we always finish up our conversations, and unfortunately we've come to the end of our chat about podcasts. But if you are listening and you want to know more, All of Rose's contact details will be somewhere on the page you're looking at, so you can get in touch with her, find out about her Opal system if you want to get started with your own podcast. And certainly if you want to be a better guest and get on more podcasts, talk to Rose as well. And if you're an expert and you'd like to share your expertise, certainly apply to be on Rose's podcast. Make sure you show up to the interview and be interesting, and you'll be away, and leverage it as well. But Rose, we always ask the same question of all of our guests who come on the That's Audacious podcast. If you could go back in time, maybe to 2020, to when you first started your podcast, in the time where we were all in lockdown and trying to figure out what we're going to do with ourselves, what advice, looking back, would you give yourself today?
Well, I would have been more organised. I wouldn't have done this on a whim. I would have done the research first, because I have been learning all through this. From 2020, I was still learning how to run the podcast properly. So as far as, all the kudos and everything that and awards that I've won, I'm still learning. And if I had have been organised in the first place, I could have been further along, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. Getting organised. And I guess that's the big thing. If you want to be on podcasts or you want to be a podcast host, talk to Rose, get yourself organised. She's won awards for what she does, and she's ranked highly in the world for what she does. Over 630 episodes, Rose, that you have now?
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. So get in touch with Rose if you want to get anything done with podcasting. I highly recommend it if you want to build your personal brand and build a profile. It's an awesome way of giving people a taste of what you're like, and certainly if you're an expert or a thought leader, to have your own channel, your own podcast. As Rose says, it doesn't take a lot to get started. You don't need to get all the bells and whistles. Just get yourself out there, decide what sort of podcast you want to have, and keep going. And if you've got maybe an old podcast that's sitting there and you started it and you're going, oh, I should get back to that, maybe I should reliven that, get in touch with Rose. I'm sure she can help you out with her Opal system to get it cracking. Thank you so much, Rose, for being on the podcast today. It's been an absolute blast. Any final last tips or advice for anybody?
Yeah, just be kind to yourself, and just do what your heart, and follow your heart.
I love it. Go for it, guys. Get out there and be audacious.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thanks so much for listening to the That's Audacious podcast. Remember, there's no place for modesty in business, and you do deserve to be well known, well paid, and wanted. For more episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on your favourite channel or follow us online. The links are in the description below.